A lot of people say that the 2000 movie X-Men was the movie that started the new comic book superhero movies. And a lot of people say Iron Man was the movie that did that in 2008. But I think there's a movie more important than those two. It came out in 1999, ahead of its time. A comedy that came right after a few silly superhero movies from a director who never directed again. Movies, that is. Mystery Men. When superhero team movie concepts were feared by all studios, this superhero team movie adaptation was funny and it was brilliant. It featured an obscure setting, hilarious heroes, a great cast, and even great visual effects that still look great today. Don't go for the superhero comedy that plays it safe, dumbs it down for little kids and families that don't know superheroes, so it can win the awards. Go for the one with ambition, stamina, and laughs. I better talk more about Mystery Men in a different video. Let's go back to the X-Men. You see, the first movie played it safe to the T, ignoring source material to make a cinematic universe story. It left out a lot of great characters, a lot of great caricatures in favor of glorifying Wolverine, since a lot of people knew him better than the other X-Men, And the movie Hollywooded up the costumes, creating some bizarre relationships. It disappointed me. It was cool, very cool to see the X-Men on movie big screen for the first time. I remember seeing the trailer for this. I was 11, almost 11 years old, and it looked really cool to see the trailer, and I couldn't wait to see it in theaters. The movie just wasn't that cool. I don't really like the movie that much. Everybody really likes the second movie. Everybody loves it, and everybody raves about it. It seems like people love it like it's something truly great. I hate it. I don't like this movie at all. I really don't. I'm a big fan of the X-Men, and I feel like this movie got nothing right. I'm gonna be completely honest. I've got to get it out there. Nothing about this movie was enjoyable for me. The acting, I didn't think the cast did a good job in it. I felt like they did a good job in the first movie, but here it felt like, it just felt like they were just reading their lines out. The changes that it made from the source material to the movie, I can handle good changes. I can't handle bad changes. And the changes in this movie were bad. I felt like the villains were stock villains. Lady Deathstrike was lowered to a stock villain. Stryker was a stock villain. Mystique was over the top and kind of annoying. The relationships were even more bizarre. Iceman and Rogue, it's just so weird to see Iceman and Rogue together. They're very strange as a couple. And it kind of hurt me because I felt like it would have been so much better if they simply followed the source material. Gambit's watching these movies and saying, "What they doing to my sugar?" I've been told that more people like the movie than those that don't like the movie. It's just that the people who don't like it are a lot more vocal about it. That's what I've been told. And now everybody that hates the movie blames Brett Ratner. They claim Brett Ratner ruined the movie franchise, even though the movie franchise seemed already ruined to me. I think this movie is actually better than the first two movies. I feel like Brett Ratner, understands action a lot more. He has experience directing action movies from the Rush Hour movies that he worked on before. So he provides cool, solid action, especially at the end when he gives us something that we didn't see in the previous movies, but we did see in the comics. A big battle between all the mutants, It didn't lower it down to Wolverine taking it over in one room with the main villain. No, it actually put all the mutants out there to kick big mutant butt on each other. Everyone got to shine in that moment. Or not everybody. Some people were still messed with, because there was still some leftover bad material from the first two movies that was carried over to this movie. And, even with the big action, Brett Ratner still made a couple dumb changes, like changing Cyclops from a complainer to dead, and Xavier dying, I guess. Jean Grey turning into the Phoenix, but then dying. Some of those changes are bad. At least Iceman and Rogue broke up in this one. Colossus only had one line, and it wasn't that strong. It gave us exposure to the Danger Room, which was cool, and a Sentinel head, which was nice. Still no Gambit, though. X-Men Origins Wolverine speaks for itself. It was awful. X-Men First Class tried to be some kind of follow-up that, forced you to accept the stupid cinematic universe ideas because the filmmakers love their own ideas so much, while also creating a ridiculous story with a dumbed-down villain, a ridiculous explanation to how Professor Xavier lost his legs, and to how Magneto got his helmet. It's like Magneto saying, I'm going to be evil like you, but you killed my mom, so I'm going to kill you. And then I'll become evil. I can't look at it through Magneto's point of view in any way with that. Then, of course, the non-mutant characters are one-dimensional and boring. And I guess Mystique now has the same aging process that Wolverine has, just because the filmmakers love her so much. Now, I gave a favorable review to the Wolverine last year. So let's skip that movie for now and go straight to X-Men Days of Future Past. It came out this year. It came out in May. Now, Bryan Singer returns to the director's chair, holding on to the X-Men movies with all his might. It seems like everybody loves this movie, but I analyze it, and I can't go a second into analyzing it without finding something ugly about it. To tell us that Magneto tried to stop JFK's assassination, but couldn't stop it and was forced to jail, it gave me a stomachache. It's disappointing that Quicksilver is lowered down to a 10-minute plot device when he really shouldn't be in this movie. They hint that Quicksilver, or as he's referred to in this, Peter, not Pietro, may be Magneto's son, which brings up the awkwardness. Yes, Magneto is Quicksilver's father. That's how it was in the comics. But gee, look how old Quicksilver is in this movie. I guess Magneto had him when he was 13? They made Quicksilver's mom a complete bozo. She's not very smart at all. She opens the front door, and 3 men, Xavier, Beast, and Wolverine, are at the door, and she immediately thinks that they're cops. The 3 men have no badges, no guns, no uniforms, and she just lets them in and says, "Son, the police are here." Xavier couldn't have gotten in her head and made her think that because he was walking in that scene. This movie is about time travel, and they explain how the time travel works in this movie. It still leaves plot holes. It's also a bit of a waste since the introduction makes most of the characters throwaway characters in an action scene I can barely remember. The older Xavier and Magneto are played once again by Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. And they work with Shadowcat to send Wolverine by the mind back in time to find the young Xavier and Magneto and prevent the future events disasters, like the events of X-Men 3 and a little bit from the Wolverine. It makes Wolverine the star again because it seems like the fans of these movies know Wolverine. They don't know the X-Men. And once again, it makes Mystique over the top, annoying, and awkward again. She has one line in the movie. She says, "Let me go, Charles." It was very awkward to me. Now that I've brought it up, I dare you to ignore it when you see it again. Going back to the future scenes where, as I said, there are throwaway characters. Colossus, Bishop, Brink, and Iceman, and Storm. That's right, they're in this. And it seems like their powers are lowered down, so that they could just get killed. They're there to get killed in the future scenes. I know I'm spoiling it, but I feel like I've got to get my point across on this movie, my personal opinion across on this. Now back to the past scenes. Magneto uses a stadium. He moves it to the meeting area to block the law enforcers from stopping him so that he can, figure out the big event at the end. And I guess he moved the entire stadium to make him look cool. Peter Dinklage was good in it, at least, as Bolivar, who is creating the Sentinels, to try to manipulate the mutant powers to stop the mutants. Then there's a big plot hole I should acknowledge. Not the plot hole that Professor Xavier is alive in the future scenes, because I think everybody else is talking about that already. The one I'm thinking of is that Wolverine in the future scenes shows off his adamantium claws again. It never showed us or explained to us how Wolverine got his adamantium claws back after losing them in the Wolverine. I read about it online. I read a whole explanation on how he may have gotten the claws back. But you go to the movies for the movie itself. You don't go to the movies so that other people can explain the scenes to you. It's not like they're making this movie for the X-Men fans. They're really making this for the movie fans, so you can't tell me that. The events from X-Men 3 are wiped away, which doesn't change the fact that that movie was still made. Cyclops and Jean are alive again. The thing that made me groan was that Iceman and Rogue were back together at the end. There are more plot holes in the movie. I'm not going to go into them. I want to close it out here. I feel no need to see this movie again. Even though the Avengers may not be the greatest comic book movies ever, they're enjoyable. The changes they made, from the comics to the movies were changes that I could handle, and I still liked that movie. I still don't like any of the X-Men movies except for the Wolverine. It was goofy, it was cool too, and Hugh Jackman brought a lot of passion to it. You could tell that Hugh Jackman was engaging 300% in his role every step of the way. People ask me, how can you be an X-Men fan and not like the X-Men movies? But that's like saying, how can you be a Batman fan if you don't like the movie Batman and Robin? I know a handful of X-Men fans that don't like these movies either. I've stated my opinion, and I know several people who had all the same problems with this movie as me, and yet they still like the movie. I think some of them are afraid to admit that they didn't like the movie. I still think The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a big king, the big king of comic book superhero movies for the year, and I love that one.